So I think when Desmond Rudolph's murder happened in 1999, it got all the attention. The Kerr Journal did some studies in 1996 to 1999, and they saw all the complaints that was given to the Louisville Police Department, and they found out of 79 complaints, 78 of them were disposed of and pushed aside. So out of 79 complaints, which is very few complaints in 3 years, they rejected all of them except for one. So you telling me in 3 years the police officers in Louisville did absolutely nothing wrong to anybody ever whatsoever? That's horseshit. Those numbers are appalling and ridiculous. Also, the use of force, not all of it was documented. The few times that they were documented, 60% of those documented was used against black folks. Greater Louisville, 33%, or in Louisville, just Kentucky, it's 20% black folks. In Greater Louisville, or my bad, I mixed that up. In Louisville, it's 33% of Louisville are black folks, but Greater Louisville, it's 20%. So either way, 20, 30%, it's not 60%. 60% is either double or triple the amount of black folks. So it's disproportionate how many times the use of force was used. And these are the documented uses of force. Is whenever the police officers use force, they have to document it. They have to write it down. They got to do the paperwork, right? And so, you know, that's bullshit. That's total bullshit. There's no way that they're absolutely that perfect. That just shows that they're criminals who cover up their crimes. They cover up their crimes as much as they're as thick as thieves. And remember Serpico? Serpico tries to uncover a gambling ring and he gets thrown. He gets beat up and I think thrown in jail. I think his life is ruined because of this. Um, Pacino was able to play him in the movie, but that doesn't mean he had a good life. I was in the middle of this correction story in 2005. There was official misconduct. So Adrian Gamer's sister, Adrian Garner, sustained injuries to his wrist, face, and shoulder. Keandra Gardner saw her brother a few weeks after the alleged attack occurred. She says immediately when he came through the door, my heart dropped to see all those scars and bruises on him. Keandra took pictures of her brother's injuries and he filed a complaint with police. In that complaint, Gardner says 3 officers handcuffed him and pushed him to the ground before repeatedly punching and kicking him. The report says the beating lasted for about 5 minutes and the officers yelled racial slurs at Gardner while attacking him. So the jailers roughed me up. I couldn't pinpoint them. I couldn't point out who they actually were. There's 3 or 4 of them, and I could might be able to see, the leader, the lead pedophile, oppressor, molester. I might be able to identify him, but really they all look the same to me. A bunch of just bald white male psychopaths, and so whereas all these cases that I'm talking about are ones that people have sued and they have pursued greater charges. If you didn't sue anybody, then they just die right there. That's the only defense we the people have, is to sue the police department. If you try to go through the proper channels, go to internal investigation, go to the merit board, they don't give a fuck. The merit board says they can't even change the decision, and they can't change the decision, but they're going to go ahead and rule against you anyways. If you can't change the decision, there is no decision to be ruled. You can't do shit. So what's the point of you existing? What's the point of internal affairs being there? Just so they could take down the paperwork and said they tried to do something? They didn't try to do shit. They investigated nothing. Then, in terms of fairness, you just switch any type of issue around. All these cases, just switch them around. If these officers who beat up this black dude, if the black dudes were beating up the white dude, if there's 3 black correctional officers beating up a white guy, and the white guy is begging, or for mercy or whatever, but that's Adrian Reynolds. I'm getting that confused with this case, but if just switch them around, and I think it's clear to anybody that has any type of morality or ethics or principles, if what's good for one person isn't good for another. Just because you put on a badge, it doesn't make you above the law. Actually, in democracies that function, the rule of law is supreme, which means nobody's above the rule of law. If thou shalt not murder whether you're a police officer or whether you're a homeless person, whether you're a billionaire, whether you're a small business, you can't murder. Thou shalt not murder, except in self-defense. So when Michael Newby gets slain, that's a crime. That's a criminal. That's a criminal who just murdered somebody else in cold blood. And Mackenzie Mattingly, he just walks through that like he's like some sort of, great celebrity, as if he's doing some sort of, God's work or some shit. You didn't help nobody. Mattingly McKenzie. You didn't help McKenzie Mattingly. You didn't help nobody. You helped nobody at all. You murdered a young man who harmed nobody. Didn't even threaten to harm you. You're the one that tried to pull out the pistol and he didn't want to be shot. You say you got in a fight over it and a drug deal gone bad. What the fuck does that mean? Were you trying to get some meth and some shit and then he wouldn't give you meth and then all of a sudden you just shot him because he wouldn't give you what you want? Like this, he's in plain clothes. Like, this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous how the LMPD has acted in all these cases that has garnered any type of attention. But I just wonder how many times this shit happened, such as my incident with the jailers. The jailers, you know, they made a gash in my eye and I'm bleeding and they molested me. But they will get away with it. What am I going to do? Sue them? I can barely pinpoint who they were, and I can't eyeball any of them. They ain't going to tell the truth. They're going to pull the videos out. They're going to say, hey, where was the videos out? You know, maybe, possibly, but you have to have money and time and resources to be able to fight all this. So I might have a fighting chance, but I'm not a rich man, so I can't afford, you know, all that type of legal services. So basically I'm just going to let it go and just tell everybody that it's bullshit. The jailers are fucking psychos, just like the Sanford prison experiments where you took college students, you put them in prison uniforms and they're beating up other college students who's in prisoner uniforms. So all you got to do is have a prison guard uniform on, put a badge, get some glasses on, and tell everybody they own the same team. They'll start oppressing motherfuckers instantly. They'll start oppressing people immediately. So Adrian Garner's sister, Keandra, she saw him. She took pictures. She filed a complaint. He filed a complaint with the police. The report says the beating lasted for about 5 minutes. The officers yelled racial slurs at Garner while attacking him. Metro Corrections Chief Tom Campbell says they're investigating Garner's allegations. We take that very seriously. Right now we're waiting to take any action depending on what happens in the judicial process. The officers will remain suspended without pay until the charges are resolved. The Fraternal Order of Police is defending the officers. No big fucking, you know, even when Desmond Rudolph was murdered and the police chief was fired, the Fraternal Order of Police is always on the wrong fucking side. They was against Robert White, said that he didn't give a shit about them. They was on the side of Desmond Rudolph, which was also the Ku Klux Klan was on that side. And you know, they're the old establishment guard, okay? They're the old establishment guard. They're probably, their moms and dads were probably the ones that protested in the 1975 white supremacist riots that happened for an entire year. It's a mini civil war here in Louisville in 1975. One of the last cities to integrate. We weren't integrated. 1954 was the Brown versus Board of Education. We didn't integrate here in Louisville until 1975. And then when the integration happened, you had just mounds and mounds and rows of fucking white supremacist piece of shit fucking bastards just coming out and saying, hey, we're against integration because we're a bunch of racist fucking dumb fucking white trash pieces of white supremacist shit. So the Fraternal Order of Police was like, hey, look at him, he's had other charges, he's clearly a crazy person or whatever. Well, Fraternal Order of Police, you've had a lot of shitty charges, you know, throughout your entire history. You just defend shitty charges. That's sort of what you guys do. You're just like the Merit Board and the internal investigations, all the apparatus. I would almost say from the top down. I'd like to think some of the judges get in there and some of the jurors get in there and they're honest people. But it just seems so easy just to side with someone who's doing the oppressing. If you're running the show and you're calling the shots of who can testify and who can't testify, you can dictate the truth. You could say what's going on. And a lot of times the judge will order the jury to do something when really the jury actually has all the power in those cases. Okay. So you know, that happened. The Robert Abernathy, he was 37. He got the largest settlement out of all of them. I couldn't find anything actually on him in Google. I said I'd have to actually get to like microfilm. But Robert Abernathy, he won $600,000. And Robert Abernathy, he was killed. Robert Abernathy was 37. They says here's an article, Daily News, December 6, 2000, and it says on June 25th. So I'm assuming June 25th, 2000 is when he got shot. But this article by the Associated Press, It says that Attorney General Janet Reno has been asked to investigate 2 fatal police shootings of blacks in Kentucky. Reverend Louis Coleman, comedian Dick Gregory, and Washington radio personality Joe Madison staged a brief protest Wednesday in front of the Department of Justice before delivering a written memo to Reno. "We want something done to these police officers," said Coleman, head of the Justice Resource Department. Robert Abernathy, 37, who had a history of mental illness, was shot 15 times in an altercation with Louisville police on June 25th. A Jefferson County grand jury declined to indict the officers last month. So Robert Abernathy is shot 15 times. Another, black person shot so many fucking times. 15, 12, 22 times. Why the fuck are you, LMPD? Quit shooting people so many goddamn fucking times. You're only supposed to shoot somebody to stop the threat. If you're shooting more than just to stop the threat, you're a fucking psycho murderer, okay? You're just straight up killing and you want to fucking kill. You think you're in the goddamn movies and you think that the person you're shooting is like fucking Hitler and you just want to put out all your rage on fucking Hitler. Well, you ain't running into motherfucking Hitlers. You're running into a bunch of fucking poor people and you're fucking up their lives. You're murdering them and you're fucking up their families' lives and the community. You're not protecting and serving anybody when you kill one of us. So, in an altercation, Louisville police on 25th, Jefferson County jury didn't indict the officers. Big fucking surprise there. Grand jury didn't fucking indict them. The prosecutor sets the grand jury up, tells them what to think. They have so much influence. Whether or not they control them or not, they're the chair, so they have all the influence in the whole thing. And so I think everybody in the room looks to the prosecutor for directions. And the prosecutor likes to take that leadership role. But really they should inform the grand jury that they're their own independent agents and they can make their own decisions. They don't have to just do whatever the prosecutor tells them to do. Tyrone Clayton Jr., 22, of Quincy, Florida, was fatally shot by Owensboro officer Lauren Frazier on November 16th after allegedly trying to run over the officer with a car. In Owensboro, they shot a homeless dude, too. There's several things that happened in Owensboro. But Janet Reno, the Attorney General, is actually investigating this. So Robert Abernathy, this is the only thing I could find about him. He's 37. It says he had a history of mental illness, shot 15 times in an altercation with Louisville police on June 25th. And then the grand jury declined to indict the officers. So they fucking murdered dude. Or no, they shot him 15 times. I think they had to murder him. He had to have died. 2 fatal police shootings. Yeah, so they died. They murdered him 15 times, right? And they didn't even indict the fuckers for murder. Okay? If society can't agree that murder is a crime, then we got a real fucking problem, okay? That seems to be like one of the few things liberals and conservatives can generally agree on. Murdering in cold blood is wrong. And eventually a jury does rectify Abernathy's problems with $600,000. So I wish I could find more about that, but I couldn't. The last case, and I got 2 minutes actually, I will just fly through his real fast. So October 10th, 1982, a 22-year-old woman was abducted at gunpoint outside a tavern in Louisville, taken to a nearby park where she was beaten, raped, and robbed. October 10th, 1982. The victim described her assailant as 5 feet, 11 inches, weighing more than 200 pounds, blue eyes, and curly dark brown hair. That fit the description of Michael VonAllmen, except for he had brown eyes. And it said he was innocent the whole time. So the crime date, it says that it was reported in 1981. He was convicted in 1982. So VonAllmen come under suspension after a tipster gave police 2 license plate numbers that may have been the attacker's vehicle. So somebody sees him, they give these things, and it drags him to his house. At a trial in 82, so I guess in October 10th, probably 1981, this happened, and he gets convicted in 1982. VonAllmen presented 3 witnesses who said he was at a party the night that he supposedly had raped them, and he drove one of them home, so he was not by himself at all. And the jury was told that VonAllmen had brown eyes, and the victim said her attacker had blue eyes. On the strength of the victim's identification, Michael VonAllmen, 24, was convicted and sentenced to 34 years in prison. So the victim said that she was pretty sure it was him, and so he gets sentenced and convicted to 35 years in prison. After he's convicted, he persuaded prosecutors to be allowed to take a polygraph test. He did so twice, and he passed. The results are so favorable that Louisville Police Chief Richard Dodson wrote a letter on his behalf to the parole board. VonAllmen was paroled in 1994, but later contacted the Kentucky Innocence Project for help in clearing his name. So he's in 92, gets out 12 years later. He's in fucking prison for 11 years, an innocent man in Kentucky prisons for 11 years with all these molester oppressors, right? So good thing he was actually able to survive all this shit, especially, you know, with the charge of him being a rapist. That he couldn't have, you know, how much street cred would he have had being a rapist? So in that instance, Ronald Tackett, a convicted felon who died in 1983 after a high-speed chase with police, been charged with abducting a 16-year-old from a gas station. So they think Robert Tackett was the actual guy who did it, and he winds up dying, and he's 200 pounds, curly black hair, so the same description, but he winds up dying. Eventually, Michael VonAllmen gets out, and he's a free man, but for 11 years, he was stuck in Kentucky's prison over some bullshit, and DNA eventually exonerated him.